Find all our courses at mindet.com. It is quite important to understand when you think about any kind of organizations, it's quite important to understand the notion of authority. And why is it so? Because you will have in any kind of organizations, you will have in the notions of centralization and decentralization of this authority. And that is exactly going to be the point of this video. So at first we will talk about the authority in general, and then about two ways how we can handle this authority. We can either try to centralize it or decentralize it. So let's see. The authority gives one person the power to hold other people accountable for their actions and the right to make decisions about the use of organizational resources. I think all of you have a quite intuitive idea about what authority is, but let's give it to practice. So let's say that I have some territory. So I have some territory. And now my organization is operating within this territory. It can be one country. Now I'm going to here on the left side draw my organizational hierarchy or hierarchy of authority. So at first, of course, there is going to be a CEO. So at first we of course have our CEO. And how do we draw a responsibility of a CEO? Well, he's on the top of the organization, so the CEO is responsible for the whole territory. So this is the responsibility of our CEO. Now, below the CEO, there are going to be, let's say, three regional managers. So we will have one regional manager. Then we will have another regional manager, and then the third regional manager. So these are our regional managers. How would we draw the responsibility of regional managers? Well, we can say that this area is under the responsibility of one regional manager. Then this area is under the responsibility of another regional manager, and then this is the area of third regional manager. So here we have them. Now under the regional managers there is going to be a workforce, right? So let's draw a workforce. So here is one person, and let me copy paste this because it's going to be a lot of them. So another one, then we have another one, then we have one more and couple more. So here we go, and let's say this is the last one. So these guys are under the responsibility of their regional manager. So this regional manager has 3 of them, this regional manager has 2 of them, and this regional manager has 3 of them. So this is what we can call them, let's say, our workforce. Now, how would we draw them? So we know that under the responsibility of one regional manager are three persons. So 1, 2, 3. And now you see, of course, I can finish the drawing. Now you see the varying responsibility over the resources. Now, let's get back to our definition of authority. Authority gives one person a power to hold other people accountable. So now you see it. The CEO holds the regional managers accountable, and then the regional managers are holding the workforce accountable. Now you see the first part of the definition. Then they have the right to make decisions about the use of organizational resources. So you can also imagine the territory as a sort of organizational resource that really the CEO is deciding about all of the organizational resources. Then regional managers are deciding about some part of the organizational resources, and then the workforce just about a tiny part of organizational resources. Now, when it comes to the authority, we can either try to centralize it or decentralize it. These are the two extremes. So really imagine it as a sort of bipolar axis. Because in reality you are never going to see an organization with purely centralized or purely decentralized authority. Organizations are going to position themselves somewhere on this bipolar axis. So one is going to lean more towards centralized, maybe less towards centralized. One is going to lean over decentralized, or going to lean almost to be purely decentralized. So now, what does it mean to say when authority is centralized? Organizational setup in which the authority to make important decisions is retained by managers at top of the hierarchy. Well, how should we imagine that? So let's say that the centralized, I'm gonna use this pink color. So let's say that the problem arises. So in this particular area, some problem arose. So this employee, this person of a workforce, stumbled upon a problem. So let's say it's this guy over here. So a problem came. Now this person is unsure how should he treat the problem, how should he solve the problem, because the solution to the problem requires the use of organizational resources. And now you see it. This person doesn't have an authority to decide about the organizational resources that would solve the problem. So this person is going to ask his regional manager. So he will ask, hey, how should I solve this problem? Can I do this or can I do that? One regional manager, which is in this case this particular one, is unsure again how the problem should be treated. So he is going to ask the CEO. And now the CEO, he is the top one, so he has to make a decision. Now the decision will be made and the decision will be then transferred down to regional manager and then down to a person who is solving the problem. So this is basically the centralized decision making, because the authority, as you see, is centralized, and the important decisions are made by the managers at the top of the hierarchy. Now, what is the plus of such decision making? Well, the plus is clearly a goal focus. Let's say a focus on goals. Focus on goals. Because if a lot of the decisions are going to be made by a CEO, then the CEO really knows what the goals are, and the decisions will be made appropriately according to the organizational goals. On the other hand, there is a clear disadvantage, and that is that the top managers can become overwhelmed by work. Overwhelmed by work. Because if you imagine, if all of these guys which are at the bottom of the hierarchy are going to pass the problems up the hierarchy, then the CEO is going to have a really full table. Now, let's go to the other extreme, which is a decentralized decision making and decentralized authority. This is an organizational setup in which the authority to make important decisions about organizational resources and to initiate new projects is delegated to managers at all levels of hierarchy. Well, so then instead of doing all the decisions at the top of the hierarchy, now according to decentralized decision making, now managers at all levels of hierarchy can solve the problems. So what would be the example? So let's imagine I will use this little bit blue color. So let's imagine that a problem came to a person, this one. So a problem arose. And now this guy over here is not sure how he should treat this problem again as previously. So he will ask his regional manager. And now the regional manager has the authority to make the decision, because we are operating under the decentralized decision making. So he can make a decision immediately and pass the decision down back to the employee. I think you can quite clearly grasp the difference. Now, what is the plus of such decision making? Well, clearly the flexibility. Because the decision making is quite faster. Now, the disadvantage definitely is the opposite of the centralized. So we are not maybe sometimes focused enough on goals. So maybe not focused enough on goals. Now, if we think further about what the problems and the benefits of these two can be, well, think about the information itself. When the information of a problem in centralized decision making is passed through so many people up and then down, the information can get distorted. So even though the information was perfect over here, then the regional manager is going to maybe distort it a little bit, and then the CEO will misunderstand maybe the information and the decision will be actually made wrong. Now, on the other hand, what can be the plus of decentralized decision making? Well, a motivation. Because now if you give managers, let's say these regional managers, an authority to make decisions, they have a possibility to show off. They can show that they are really good ones and they will try to make really good decisions and will put in a lot of work. So that is basically the essence of centralized and decentralized of organizations and their hierarchies, and when it comes to the authority.